Hello, it's your favorite sports Unc here. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join the fastest growing community on YouTube. Remember, Nightcap doesn't happen without you. So please subscribe or you're going to make Ocho cry. Former heavyweight champion George Foreman has passed away at the age of 76. George Foreman, a two-time world heavyweight champ, an Olympic gold medalist, if I'm not mistaken, in 1968, who was regarded as one of the hardest punchers in boxing history. One of his most memorable punches, he knocked out Michael Moore despite being down on all the scorecards in 1994 to reclaim his heavyweight championship belt at the age of 45. He was inducted into the both World Boxing Hall of Fame and the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Big George. If I'm not mistaken, George was the heavyweight champion in 1968 in Mexico City. Joe Frazier was the heavyweight champion in 64. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's Tokyo. And then Ali was 1960 in Rome. And so we had a great, boxing we used to dominate boxing. We don't do it anymore, Ocho. But we used to dominate. America used to dominate the sport of boxing.
Yes.
And I think George, a lot of people remember for the loss that he had against Muhammad Ali in the Rumble in the Jungle. Some of his famous fights when he almost killed Joe Frazier.
Yeah.
And that's when Muhammad Ali was just, down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. And he kept knocking him down, and Joe kept getting up until he finally knocked him out, and the fight was over. One of his most famous fights, guys, if you get a chance, go YouTube this fight. Now, it's not artistically pretty.
Right.
But you talk about two guys just throwing haymakers, you will never see another heavyweight fight like this. George Foreman against Ron Lyle.
Oh, Ron, okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen it, Chad, but if you get an opportunity,
yes, sir,
please watch this fight. Now, it's not a thing of beauty. It's not great defense. It's just two guys throwing haymakers upside each other's head. And both fighters go down, get up, the other one down, get up, knock the other one down. It's as good a heavyweight fight you'll see. Foreman prevailed. And now, I don't know how many people, but he started this George Foreman grill. I got three of them, Ocho. I had two small ones, and I got the big one that's about this big. Yeah, I did. When I was back when I was playing, that's what we used to cook on. So I cook hamburgers, we cook steak and things like that on the George Foreman grill. And if you had one, you guys know what I'm talking about. It had the lines on it. All your meat would always have those lines on it. But it was great, and I'm so sad that Big George, because he turned his life over to God. He became an ordained minister. He got a big family, loved his kids, loved his wife, and unfortunately, George Foreman passed away at the ripe age of 76.
Oh man, listen, obviously, and the people in the chat, I'm sure you guys know how enthusiastic and passionate I am about the sport of boxing and combat sports in general. Obviously, I wasn't old enough to be able to watch George Foreman, but I was able to go back and watch some of the fights with him and Ali, Joe Frazier, and some others, and he's one of the all-time greats. He's one of the all-time greats, and it's very sad to hear of his passing. And normally, most of the time, we celebrate when someone passes on. And I went back and watched some of his best fights. I watched some of his best fights. I wasn't in town at the time of his passing, so I mean, it was sad to hear a legend, definitely a legend gone.
It is. It's so sad, but like I said, I mean, George, he loved his country, because if you go back and look, he got the little American flags and he's waving them in the ring because he's proud to be an American. Especially in '68, everybody knows what was going on in '68. That was the height of the civil rights movement. If I'm not mistaken, Dr. King had just gotten assassinated in April, and I think the Summer Olympics had just was happening a little later that summer, so America was on edge. That's also Carlos and Tommy Smith being kicked out for raising on the podium when they finished 1-3 in the 200 meters.
Hey, speaking of Mr. Smith, when I was at Oregon State, when I was at Santa Monica Junior College, my head coach was Robert Taylor, rest in peace. Tommy Smith was a track coach at Santa Monica Junior College during my time there.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
So George Foreman, gone at the age of 76, gone but never forgotten. We'll remember his contributions to what he did for the sport of boxing, what he did for his community, and George Foreman, and our thoughts and prayers go out to him,
Yes, sir.
to his family, and all those impacted by the passing of George Foreman, gone at the age of 76. This episode of Nightcap is brought to you by Cologuard, a non-invasive colon cancer screening test. Currently, colon cancer is the second leading cause of cancer-related deaths in the U.S., and it's on the rise in people under the age of 50. But when caught at early stages, colon cancer is survivable in 90% of the people. So screening and early detections are key to reducing overall colon cancer deaths. And a great one-of-a-kind way to feel more in control of your colon cancer screening is through the Cologuard test, a prescription-based test with none of the prep that's required for a colonoscopy. The Cologuard test is the only FDA-approved, non-invasive option that looks for both altered DNA and blood in your stool, which can indicate the presence of abnormal cells. This test offers convenience and ease of use, and the kit is delivered right to your door. Once you complete the kit, it is returned to the lab and results are available within 2 weeks. Plus, it's affordable. Most insured patients pay $0. And if you do need a colonoscopy as a follow-up, most insurance plans cover that as well. So if you're 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about screening for colon cancer with the Cologuard test. You can request a Cologuard prescription today at Cologuard.com/podcast. The Cologuard test is intended to screen adults 45 and older at average risk for colorectal cancer. Do not use the Cologuard test if you've had adenomas, have inflammatory bowel disease, or certain hereditary syndromes, or personal or family history of colorectal cancer. The Cologuard test is not a replacement for colonoscopy in high-risk patients. Cologuard test performs in adults aged 45 to 49, it's estimated, and based on a large clinical study of patients 50 and older. False positives and false negatives can occur. Cologuard is available by prescription only. Ocho, March Madness has 0 perfect brackets that remain. More than 34 million brackets was entered. None remained perfect. It took 43 games, but number 3 Kentucky's 84-75 win over number 6 Illinois busted the final bracket. So, Ocho, this is the first time that a men's perfect bracket had lasted until the second round since 2019. In 2024, the last perfect men's bracket was busted in the 31st game of the tournament. Mm-hmm. Are you surprised that there are no perfect brackets remaining?
Listen, I'm not surprised because if you look at the odds when it comes to having a perfect bracket and winning prize money or winning something for having the perfect bracket, I mean, you would know the chance of winning or having the perfect bracket is less likely than actually winning the lotto, if I'm not mistaken, statistically. And if it's like that, the chance of having a perfect bracket, you would have to almost guess or create multiple brackets at that to actually have one that goes perfect and have it different scenarios in the way games are going to play out. Because if you look at it, listen, Unc, it only comes down to one game. It comes down to one game. I was excited and didn't even create a bracket. I just went on a limb and said, you know what? Hell, St. John's is finna win the whole thing. And St. John's they didn't win and lost
in the second round.
They didn't lost in the second round. So if I had a bracket, which I didn't, that the goddamn one team I did pick, now they going home.
Yep. And because normally, if your team it's hard for you to win a bracket if the team that you picked to win the tournament gets knocked out early. Because think about because you had them winning, they got knocked out the round of 32. So now they don't make the Sweet 16. They don't make the Elite 8. They don't make the Final Four. So one side of your bracket is already gone. Unless you're perfect on the other sides, it's hard for you to overcome that. But this is why people love March Madness so much, is the uncertainty, the unpredictability of college basketball. Because you're not dealing with professionals here, Ocho. Right. You're dealing with kids. You're dealing with 18 to 20, 21-year-old kids. Maybe some are a little older now because of the portal and what we had with COVID. So sometimes the kids are 22, 23 years of age. Right. But you're you're not dealing with professionals. Although some of them are getting paid, so I guess you would theoretically consider them professionals. But when you look at it like that, Ocho, I'm not surprised. I'm surprised there haven't been more upsets. Because normally we get more. Yeah. Normally, because I don't think we didn't have any 13, 14 seeds that upset anybody this year. Normally we have a 13 or 14 seed, a 15 seed that would upset somebody. It's just hard now, Ocho, because the freshmen, if you're really good, you leave. Right. And the portal guys going back to go in one school here didn't like the amount of playing time, or that got into it with coaches, or whatever the case may be. And so now, guys, the talent is spread. Guys are not just going to Carolina, Duke, and Kentucky, and Kansas.
Right.
Guys are spreading out. UConn, even though they lost today to Florida. But that's what happens. That's what happens. And you're going to start to see this, I think, a little bit more in football also, Ocho, the unpredictability of college football, because the guys are starting to spread out. Because you know what? There are a lot of teams that got money. Now, they might not have as much as Ohio State or, say, Michigan or Alabama or Georgia, but hey, considering I was going to get nothing and I can get 200, 300,000, that's pretty good money for an 18-year-old that's entering college.
You know, when I think about it, you talk about the landscape and how the dynamic of the playing field is somewhat even because players are going everywhere. I think when it comes to college football, I think that's already happened. I think it's already happened from the time. You think of the days when the Hurricanes, the Florida Gators, and the Florida and the Seminoles used to absolutely dominate collegiate football and get all the great players, especially from down here in Florida, as opposed to now. Listen, the kids out of Florida and Texas and in LA, they're going everywhere.
They're going to Ohio State. They're going to Alabama. Look at Amari Cooper. Look at Jerry Jeudy. Look at Jeremiah Smith. He's at Ohio State. Look at Lamar Jackson. He's from Florida. He went to Louisville. So where the guys from Florida would normally stay home, they're like, nah, we go
out of there. They out of there.
And so, you know, if Florida could actually keep their guys, that's why Florida State, Miami, the Canes, that's why they were so good, because they normally kept that homegrown talent. Now that homegrown talent, they leave. And so Ridley, isn't Calvin Ridley from Florida?
Calvin Ridley,
he and his brother, they went out of state. And so you're right, Ocho. I think because the guys are starting to leave and starting to spread out, you're going to see, the likelihood of you see the domination that you once saw. No. I don't know if we're going to see that again.
No, it's not going to happen. Listen, unless there's some booster from somewhere that comes along with an abnormal amount of money and let's say UM, for example, or Florida State. In order for them to get back to their dominating ways, they have to come into these homes and offer some of these five-star kids or steal players from other schools.
That's what you're going to need to do, Ocho.
Yeah, based on the amount of money they're willing to pay them. In order for the Hurricanes or the Seminoles to get back to how it was back in the 90s. You got to keep all homegrown kids right here within the state.
When you look at it, Ocho, and like you said, you got to get a kid that was like a Jordan Addison. He won the Biletnikoff Award at Pitt, and now he ends up at USC. Because you got those big movie studio execs and all those guys that went to USC. That's a big film school. Which one of those? Is it Katzenberg or David Geffen that went to USC? It's one of them. Because SKG is Spielberg, Katz, and Geffen. Spielberg, Katzenberg, and Geffen, SKG. But I know one of them got a film school named after him at USC. Because they started Pixar, didn't they? SKG. Spielberg, David Geffen. But that's what you're going to have, Ocho. You're going to have, like you said, those big guys to have that kind of money. You see Larry Ellison, his wife went to Michigan. He intervened and got Bryce Underwood to flip from LSU to Michigan.